split of 6 and 6. Play 6 games, have a bye, play 6 more games to wrap up the regular season. So you have an opportunity to potentially go into the bye at best, maybe like a 5-1. Right? Let's just say you go on the road and lose to Alabama, which, hey, that's not the end of the world. You handle your business against Kentucky and Towson. You hopefully beat Mississippi State and Kentucky. If you were able to beat Florida, you could, again, we're talking best case scenario here, go into that bye at 5-1, knowing, all right, at the very minimum, you have to win one more game to get to a bowl. Now, it's a tough slate at the back end of the season. You do have an Arkansas mixed in there as well, compared to, let's say, if you went 4-2, which is still good, but you're still having to win at least 2 more games to get to that 6-1 mark, get back to a bowl game, which, again, is the first bar everybody's trying to clear for this upcoming season. And it doesn't help the fact the game is on the road, too, right? And we talked about this yesterday. Toughest places to play. Swamp's always a tough place to play. And I don't know what Florida's record's going to be early on in the season. I imagine it'll probably be halfway decent, where the crowd's still going to be into it. The crowd's still going to be enthusiastic, as they're typically going to be when it comes to a new coach like a John Summerall. So you're going to be going into a tough challenge there, right? And yeah, that is truly probably the biggest swing game of the season.
We'll talk about this. We'll get into that. We'll get into the schedule a little bit, but in particular that Florida game. David Waters coming up here at 12:30. Then also, again, later on in the show, Lamont Paris spoke yesterday. I did not want to be sitting here on June 25th. I didn't mind being fired up for football. I wasn't real thrilled about it, but I didn't want to be this fired up for football. But I really didn't want to be fired up for basketball. But here,
you didn't want to be fired up for basketball?
Not on June 25th.
Okay.
Because the anticipation, the excitement, I didn't want to have to go through it. Well, here I am. And I'm telling you, they've suckered me back in. I know. I've seen 3 out of the last 4 years. I've witnessed it. I love college basketball. I probably love college basketball more than 90% of you out there. Stupid me, last night, came home, got into the second half of the NBA draft. I have issues. I'm well aware of it. I need to see a counselor for watching the second night of the NBA draft. I'm working on it, I promise. But I am excited for this, and listening to Lamont Paris yesterday and talking about the international players and Marcus Johnson and doing something and talking about Bob Dunwald coming in and the impact he's had. We'll get it. We're going to get into a lot of that today. It's going to be a basketball day a little bit. Also, again, NASCAR. They were out in San Diego last week. I kept wanting to say Colorado because my mind is stuck on Colorado and Giraffes.
Coronado Air Force Base, or Naval Base in San Diego.
Right, well, that's what I was saying. They were in San Diego, but yeah, they were at Coronado Air Force Base, but they were in San Diego last week, which is obviously a great place to run a race, great place to be. But we'll talk about that as well. So don't worry, not all giraffe talk and the fact that Dave is fostering 20 stray cats. We'll move on from some of that this afternoon and get into sports. Coming up next, again, that schedule thing that we're talking about. I'll explain again. That Florida game, circle it. It's massive. We'll get more into that one before we talk with David Waters at 12:30. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. Well, it's beautiful out there today. You probably don't have to think about your roof. Let's be quite honest. You probably don't think about your roof at all. That is not one of your concerns. You don't come home in the afternoon. You don't wake up in the morning thinking about your roof. But you know who does? Mid-State Roofing. That's why they've been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for over 30 years, because 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's all they can think about. It's on their mind when they get up in the morning. It's on their mind when they go to bed. And for those that don't go to bed, it stays on their mind because you can give them a phone call at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. You discover a leak, Mid-State Roofing is ready to take a peek and help you. 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. 803-562-356-1919. Home, business, Columbia, Florence, Greenville, Charleston, wherever. Mid-State Roofing has you covered. Just give them a phone call. 803-356-1919. Tell them Bill Gutter sent you. Either y'all going to make it to 10 o'clock tonight for USA versus Turkey. I believe it's now Turkey.
Yeah, somebody texted us in earlier that apparently they had a name change thing a couple years ago.
Yeah, identity crisis. I'm been
Turkey, that's fine. The game is largely inconsequential, but
it is going to put inconsequential.
I'll watch. I mean, I'll be awake, so why not?
Okay. All right, Dave.
The Braves aren't giving me a whole lot right now.
No, they're not. Good Lord. Dave, you and the Cats, Turkey, USA, 10 p.m. tonight?
Well, I'm always, whatever people want to be called, you call them what they want to be called.
Good drop in. All right, 803-404-6100 there. As doubt we'll get into much World Cup discussion today because, as you said, we are through to the knockout round. Turkey is eliminated. Yeah, I think there's I did get into Brazil-Scotland yesterday, thinking that Scotland would actually be pretty, that kind of made sense that they might be pretty good at soccer. Nah, they weren't. So,
Or Brazil's just really good.
well, yes, but there was also like the very first goal, like the Scotland goalie ran. It looked like me playing a video game where you don't know how to use the controllers and you get hold of the
Went the wrong
goalie and you
direction.
and it leaves the goal wide. Like, I was like, I've done that in a video game before, but this is real life. Talking football, we'll get into some football here coming up in about 10 minutes. David Waters of Gator Breakdown. And then actually next Tuesday, we'll have Chris Plank on to talk Oklahoma, and that's another big one in Norman on Halloween, I think. I get my dates on Texas A&M and Oklahoma mixed up.
Yeah, it's Halloween.
Okay. And then we'll have some more coming up over the next few weeks as we get set for SEC Media Days, but we'll start with Florida today. Tyler, you asked the question about the Gator schedule. So let's look at this. We know what South Carolina's got, and we'll come back to this in just a second. Florida will open the season with Florida Atlantic. They'll kick off the John Summerall era at 7:45 on the SEC Network. By the way, I don't know if you saw yesterday, SEC Network is revamping their night group. They're casting Tom Hart, Rogers,
I saw that,
and whomever the third was.
Is it Kubelik?
Is it Kubelik? Yeah.
Guy?
They're being all replaced. They're being promoted essentially, actually promoted. And the name that I saw yesterday at least was Chase Daniels coming in to fill the Jordan Rogers role.
Okay.
So we'll see on the others, but that'll be the 7:45 game. So you can check out John Summerall that night after South Carolina plays that day. Then they'll play Campbell, the Camels. Pretty certain we definitely don't have Camels running loose in this country.
Elijah Campbell's.
There you go. So they're 2-0, right?
Yeah.
All right, now you ask the question. September 19th, they go to Auburn for a battle of brand new coaches, Alex Golish and John Summerall.
Yep.
September 26th, Mississippi comes to Gainesville. New coach Pete Golding. October 3rd, the week before the South Carolina game, they go to Missouri. So you've got those three leading up to the South Carolina. So you're right. They should get off to a 2-0 start, but then I think they'll be favored against Auburn. Well, I don't know. That game's on the road. They'll probably not be favored in all three of those and could very well come in 2 and 3 with that fan base already throwing their hands up going, we like John Summerall, but we know it's going to take a year.
They're probably looking at the South Carolina game as they're like, a chance to catch their breath, because after that,
oh goodness,
they got to go to Texas before their bye week.
Yes,
so they're probably looking at saying, okay, yeah, got to go to Auburn, not gonna be favored against Ole Miss, got to go to Missouri. Oh, thank God we have South Carolina. That'll be our game to get ourselves right again.
Well, no, you're right. The bye week, you mentioned the bye week. So they play South Carolina, then they go to Texas, then they get the bye week on October 24th. So they will have played 7 straight games at that point. Bye week, but then they go Georgia, Oklahoma. So they actually have a stretch there, 3 games in 4 weeks of Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma to wrap up October and go into November. So again, you can honestly look at both teams, South Carolina and Florida, and circle this game and go, it is the turning point in the season for both teams, because if Florida goes 2-1 in that previous stretch, Auburn, Mississippi, and Missouri, you figure the first two, they're sitting at 4-1. I don't have them beating Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma. They'd be 4-1. Then you got Kentucky and Vanderbilt to wrap up the season. We don't know what Vanderbilt's going to be. So my point on this is for Florida, this is a huge swing game as well. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't look this up during the break because it's not on the ESPN.com, that this is scheduled to be an early game due to the times that have already come out. It's going to be basically a noon or 12:45 game. Yeah,
it's the early window. So, early kick after they'd been on the road the week prior at Missouri. That is one of the few early kicks South Carolina has this year.
I believe you're right.
I know they don't have any true nooners at home, the exception of the first game against Kent State. Early kick there. Again, you're going on the road. Man, here's the thing, because you always have to now provide the context of, well, what if so-and-so is the next Signetti, right? And what if they immediately turn that program around and turn them into a real contender? And what if they go out there and beat Auburn? What if they beat Missouri? What if, I don't know, even if they don't beat Ole Miss, what if they play them to a really tough game to where we're saying, oh, wait a minute, that's a ranked Florida team you're now going to, or something along those lines. It's not impossible, right? You never know.
No, Florida could very well. Look, I don't put it past South Carolina. Y'all going to think I'm a bit of a homerish on this. this is a game where both teams could come in with wheels falling off. South Carolina, I until I see South Carolina beat Mississippi State, I can't just chalk that one up. Until I see South Carolina beat Kentucky, I can't just chalk that one up. I'm going to say the same thing about Alabama. Until Alabama beats South Carolina, Alabama's going to have a new quarterback. I've seen the Gamecocks basically blow that game the last 2 years. I know it's going to be in Tuscaloosa. It's going to be a little bit different, but I don't look at Alabama like I did with Nick Saban and just be like, all right, survive that game. Don't take any bad injuries. South Carolina can beat Alabama. Florida can beat Missouri, Mississippi, and Auburn. Both teams could come in 5-0.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we're talking about a different game. Both teams could come in 2-3. And we're talking about a season-saving game. Like, this game, to me, when you look at both teams, is the foundational piece of what your season will be defined as. If South Carolina loses this game, I bet if we're playing it out in our mind correctly. Now, again, I'm being the eternal optimist when I talk about, well, you can beat Alabama, and you can. You can. It's very possible. But South Carolina you would agree with me, should be sitting no worse than 4-1.
Ideally, yeah.
No worse.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's not ideally. That's bare minimum because you get Mississippi State and Kentucky at home. And first-year coach Kentucky, Mississippi State should be better than 4-1. But you lose this, you go to 4-2. Then you get that Tennessee game, which I think Tennessee's better than South Carolina, but you come off a bye. You get returning playoff team Oklahoma with John Mateer, returning Texas A&M with Marcel Reed. Arkansas should win that one. Georgia and Clemson. This Florida game, to me, is the one that we circle and you go, you got to have it. And South Carolina has notoriously blown some games over the last 10 years against Florida. You think about the one, and I still point to the Will Muschamp game down there in 2018, I think, where South Carolina's up 31-14 going into the fourth quarter and blows it and loses 35-31. And that team was that whole program was never the same for Will Muschamp after that. They would get blown out. They would win another game, I think Chattanooga or something, get blown out by Clemson, have the weird game against Akron in which Muschamp wouldn't play the backups, and then they get decimated in the bowl game in 2018 by Virginia, go back to Charlotte, lose to North Carolina, and we all know how it wrapped up from there.
Yeah, and last time you saw Florida, you were incapable of stopping them on a couple fourth downs in the fourth quarter, and Ricky Pearsall converting there and obviously ended up losing that game. So, yeah, this is a team that you haven't gotten in. Last time we were in the swamp was that disastrous game before you pulled off those two big upsets against Tennessee and Clemson. So you don't have the best history against them as of late. Obviously, those were different Florida teams, different coach and all that kind of stuff. But, you're fighting an uphill battle a little bit going into a game like this just for the optics of playing down in the swamp. And, again, who knows what this Florida team's going to be. But you're right, the kind of the point of the whole conversation. This is a swing game for both teams that really determines the trajectory of what both their seasons are going to be afterwards.
803-404-6100. Let's see what's going on down in Gainesville when we come back. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
It's all right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. We're in the midst of summertime. Yes, it gets very, very hot, but also we have those afternoon thunderstorms that pop up just about every single day. When you have heavy rain come through your area, you might end up with some standing water in your crawl space. And I've told you many times before, standing water in your crawl space can create a litany of problems with your home because about half the air that you breathe in your home comes from your crawl space. The last thing you want to do is breathe in nasty, mildewy, moldy type of air coming from your crawl space. That's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to cantycanfixit.com and schedule an appointment today with our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists. They'll come out, evaluate your foundation and crawl space, and get it fixed so your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, go online to cantycanfixit.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists.
He is a good buddy of mine. He joins us from time to time when we got to know what exactly is going on in Gainesville, because nobody covers the Florida Gators better than my good buddy, David Waters. So I've not seen in a while, David. It appears we've got to get some family members to get married again for us all to get together. Hope you and the family, I know that there's an unfortunate circumstance with, I believe, your wife's family taking place right now, but I hope everybody is doing okay, or at least some improvement is happening.
Yeah, it seems to be. Good talking to you, Will. And, the boys, there's a wreck with my brother-in-law and my two nephews. The boys made it home yesterday. This happened last Friday.
Good.
My brother-in-law still in the hospital, but looking better. So thanks for your well wishes and everything going on there.
Well, let's talk. I'm circling this game for Florida and South Carolina. It's going to be an early game according to the ESPN television schedule, so noon, 12:45, whatever that ends up being. We just discussed looking at the previous 5 games for both teams. It's possible both teams show up 5-0. It's possible both teams show up 2-3. Give us the lowdown right now. What is the feeling as we hit mid to late June 25th today, on Florida and John Summerall and just the overall attitude of the program? I feel like Billy Napier, and you covered this guy too, I feel like Billy Napier was a lot like Will Muschamp, and that he just sucked the fun out of Florida football. Just a no-fun kind of guy and really unenjoyable. And it feels like John Summerall's working to have to bring that back.
Yeah, it does. It does start with fun. We know Florida fans, dating back to having Steve Spurrier as head coach, love scoring the points. The fun and gun style. Urban Meyer comes in, puts up a whole lot of points too, and it just kind of fits the mantra of what Gator Nation is looking for in a head coach. And even though John Summerall, of course, is a defensive-minded head coach, started out, played linebacker at Kentucky, and got defensive coordinator, worked his way up to being a head coach, he understood. And he made on his opening press conference, I know what the fan base wants. And, and he goes and hires Buster Faulkner, one of the best offensive minds in football, to help turn around this Gator offense. So obviously you can just see by his body of work so far, without a game being played, besides the spring game, that he understands the kind of maybe mission and the assignment of appeasing their nation. Look, obviously the goal is to win some games, but there's a certain way Florida wins games. There's a certain way Florida can recruit. There's the athletes in the state of Florida where, speed's all over the place, so you've got to kind of build an offense around that, not be this ground and pound style of offense that doesn't really fit the type of talent you can get in the state of Florida. And John Summerall understands that. So I think, I've had him on Gators Breakdown twice. He's done a lot of media rounds. He's just really opened himself up and kind of understanding what the fan base is looking for. So, obviously, everything's A-okay right now. A game hasn't been played yet, but certainly everything's looking with a green arrow up right now as much as it can be without a game being played.
And David, off of that, the Gator fan base is one that obviously has high expectations given, what Spurrier and Meyer did in years past. And, you look at the McElwains that got moved on from not long after playing for SEC titles. Same thing with Dan Mullen a few years later. Obviously, the Napier era seems to have taken things a few steps back. But with John Summerall, how patient do you think this fan base is willing to be to let this play out over maybe what could be a couple years before they kind of get back to being that high-level potential team in the SEC again?
Yeah. There's obviously got to be some signs of, tangible improvement along the way. The fan base is running out of patience, and that's not really a John Summerall thing. No matter who would be the head coach right now, there would be that label. I mean, there's just hasn't been what Gator Nation wants, what the fan base wants. So right now, I do think that there will be some realistic expectations that come along with an early tenure. Look, I mean, fair or not, Kurt Cignetti's ruined this for a lot of coaches out there, being able to walk into Indiana and what he's done. Now, maybe he's just that special, and he probably is. And it's probably not fair to expect a head coach, especially the SEC, to come in right around, and turn it around like Kurt Cignetti. He's just that special. So I do think a lot of Gator Nation is going to be putting some fair expectations on it. Now, you look at it, and not just Florida fans, but a lot of pundits out there say, hey, this roster does have a lot of talent on it. Billy Napier didn't get the best out of it. So he walks into a talented team. He's had first-year success dating back to his time at Troy, dating back to his time at Tulane, and success has kind of been there. So I think when you look at the recent past, when you look at the talent on this roster, they expect some immediate improvement in year one.
Let's go to what to me is the big thing for Florida. And you said they expect immediate improvement. Aaron Philo comes in. He will follow Buster Faulkner. He was the backup quarterback, obviously, at Georgia Tech. What did you see from him this spring? What is kind of the word about him being able to run this offense and step in and get this team to whatever that expectation is for 2026?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly in a battle with Tramel Jones, who was on the roster as a true freshman last year, and credit to him, even as a true freshman, able to be the main backup to DJ Lagway last year with some other guys like Harrison Bailey, who was on the roster. He overtook those guys basically in fall camp last year. So certainly Philo, I really do think it's a competition. In the end, I think it will be Philo who ends up separating himself in fall camp, but there was some concern that, hey, he didn't separate himself even with that familiarity with Buster Faulkner, that he didn't separate himself in spring camp. So is that more of a credit to Tramel Jones and the type of player he is, or is it a detriment to Aaron Philo that he couldn't separate himself? So I think early on in fall camp is going to be really key. I don't think Florida really wants the title to go into game one, game two, where you have some tune-up games. I do think Florida would like to settle on the starter early on, and I do think the familiarity will end up winning out for Aaron Philo. So it's going to be about the physical limitations. I do think he can run this offense, but Florida's got some questions at offensive line. How would that play into it? But Florida's loaded at the skill position at receiver and at running back, so you're not going to ask a ton from your quarterback. So I do think the familiarity paired with the weapons around him, I do think gives Florida a pretty good baseline for what Aaron Philo brings to the table.
He is David Waters. You can follow him on Twitter at GatorDave_GB. Does a phenomenal job. And I want to circle back to this, what are the expectations from Florida fans for this year? 8-4, 9-3, get us through a winning season in a bowl game and bring energy back? What is the fair expectation?
Yeah, I think that 8-4 is kind of the mag number. I think most would be acceptable of that with another tough schedule. Now, it's not the toughest schedule that Florida has had the last couple of years, where you're playing Miami out of conference and you've played Georgia, you've played Texas the last couple of years, and those teams fighting for playoff spots, Tennessee as well. You don't get Tennessee LSU this year. So while it is a tougher schedule, it does ease up a little bit, but it is a 9-game conference schedule, so I think you have to throw it into the mix as well. But 8-4 would give somewhere along the way a pretty good win for Florida. Seasons don't go as you expected. You can't sit here and say, all right, 8-4, and the losses are going to be Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, the better teams on the schedule. It usually doesn't work out that way. You might win a game you're not supposed to. You lose a game you're not supposed to. And it kind of goes for year one head coaches as well. But I think when you take the schedule as a whole, 8-4 should be, I think, appeasing to most Gator fans. Anything more than that, I think you start getting really excited about where this thing's heading and how John Summerall can kind of piece it together pretty fast if he's able to, go out there and get 9-3, and that maybe puts you in the college football playoff conversation year one as a dark horse. I mean, Chris Lowe for On 3 just had Florida as his dark horse in the SEC to make the college football playoff. So, there is, I won't necessarily say that's an expectation. Dark horse is kind of supposed to be a surprise. So he's picking Florida as that's maybe surprise team this year, and kind of going back through the conversation we just had, there's a lot of talent. John Summerall's had year one success, so I think all that tied together, that does kind of maybe signal to some of Gator Nation, we should expect some instant success. 8-4 would do. Anything more than that's kind of gravy.
About 2 more minutes here, David. You mentioned Aaron Philo a moment ago, but other guys in the transfer portal, who do we need to know that you think is going to make an impact this year?
I'll give you one on each side of the ball right quick. Micah Mays at receiver. He was kind of the star of the spring game. Alice Wilson, the star receiver, 5-star receiver from last year, had that great game against Texas but couldn't stay healthy. Well, he missed spring practice as well, or some of spring practice as well. Didn't play in the spring game, but Micah Mays, the transfer from Wake Forest, really showed out all through spring practice and in the spring game. And then on defense, I'll go DJ Coleman, the transfer from Baylor. Florida really needs a lot of help in that secondary. It's a secondary that just has not lived up to anywhere near a DBU moniker Florida used to have in that secondary. Jordan Castell transfers out. Sharif Denson transfers out. Aaron Gates transfers out. DJ Coleman comes in for Taylor, and by all accounts had a really good spring. He had an interception in the spring game as well. So I think on each side of the ball, those are the two that are near the top of the list.
Real quick, just about a minute left. Who besides Lagway? Who else did Florida lose that you're like, we probably wanted to hold on to them?
Not many, honestly. I'd rather have him than not have him. But with what Florida did, and I probably should throw in Eric Singleton in that conversation, get him to transfer from Auburn. I was trying to go a little deeper there, but Eric Singleton's going to be the star of this transfer class there for Florida. But he's able to replace Trey Wilson. Trey Wilson, couldn't stay healthy at Florida. He transfers to LSU, go partners up with Lane Kiffin now. Maybe he can unlock something. Maybe he can stay healthy there in Baton Rouge. But I thought he would be a good player. Just really could not stay healthy for Florida. He showed a lot as a true freshman a couple years ago, and really just unfortunate that he couldn't stay healthy. So he's probably one I think I'd really look at who can still be a star elsewhere.
He is David Waters. We always appreciate it, buddy. Good luck to you and the family, and I hope to see you down in Tampa in a couple weeks, and certainly catch up with you before then, but appreciate the insight this afternoon.
Yeah, I'll see you guys in Tampa.
Take care. David Waters, again, Gator Breakdown, does absolutely phenomenal job keeping everybody up to date on what's going on with the Florida Gators. So we'll talk about that. We'll wrap up that when we come back. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Thank you, David Waters, for joining us. We'll start kind of our coverage of SEC football teams moving forward to SEC Media Days, and then obviously we'll revisit everybody once we get there. But as we kind of now wrap up, that's really what we're doing. You talk about it's not far away. Last week of June here, wrapping up the June kind of summer months. The official visit weekends are coming. The dead recruiting period is kind of coming up. July is kind of that transition month. We just mentioned it, SEC Media Days coming up, and then you'll have practice getting going. By the way, a proposal day. Did you see this? A proposal. Nothing set just yet, but obviously changing around practice schedules to where you would maybe have it more similar to the NFL, reducing the preseason by 4 practices, but 6 more practices that you can kind of designate sometime. And I'm a little confused on if it's all for spring or if you can break it up into some like extra mini camps that you could have during the summer or leading up to the season.
This has kind of been going on for a while because I think it was maybe originally proposed as like an OTA type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Have they gotten further with that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, that's now proposed, and it looks like it's got a great chance to pass, which would then go into play for the 2027 season.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard a lot of coaches talk about that NFL type of model with how they do the offseason. So that sounds like a step in that direction.
So that would be one. But let's go back to what we've been talking about here, and that would be South Carolina and Florida, which I think, Bill Gunner thinks, and I'll let you speak for yourself, is kind of the game of the year. Obviously, everything can change and evolve, but when you talk about games that kind of determine the path, especially going into that bye week, I like South Carolina coming off of the bye week against Tennessee at home and what's going to be a late afternoon game. Tennessee will be coming off the Alabama game. But that bye week, I mean, and again, because you look at it, both teams could be 5-0. Both teams could be 2-3. Some combination in between there is probably more realistic, but it could really be the defining moment for both teams when you talk about bowl hierarchy or even a college football playoff run.
Yeah, a lot's going to hinge on that. And again, like you said, we could be talking about these two teams being 5-1 going into this thing and playing way better than I think a lot of people expect them to, because again, that's kind of the nature of college football now, where so much can change in one offseason. Again, we look at Carolina's roster; they're very, very talented. So we would hope they're living up to that potential of being a really, really good team. And as we just talked about with David Waters, so Aaron Philo, Eric Singleton, those guys like that have played in the Buster Faulkner system at Georgia Tech, and just given the fact that Florida does still recruit pretty good, that's one thing you can say about Billy Napier. He was still bringing in some pretty decent recruiting classes at times. So there's still talent on that roster that, that they can, go out there and be a really good team if John Summerall can obviously get the most out of them. So we'll see. Again, a lot of football to be played between the start of the season and when that game happens, but I expect them to be to each other in terms of, I don't think it's going to be a situation where one team's 5-1 and one team's 2-3. I think they're going to be somewhere close to one another when this game is played.
Are you one of those people that buys into it's a first-year head coach against a fifth-year head coach, therefore you got to win because this guy's just getting his program going and his bearings? Or are you kind of like, that's not as relevant to this situation is not relevant when you talk about these situations?
If John Summerall had never been a head coach before, yes, like Will Stein with Kentucky. When Carolina plays Kentucky, Coach Beamer has 6 years of head coaching experience. Will Stein will have had 3 games at that point in time. There's something to that. John Summerall's been coaching plenty, right? Like he's not a stranger to being a head coach, so I don't think that there's a distinct advantage or not in that type of situation.
803-404-6100. Texter weighs in. Let me ask you this. SEC giants like Florida, Bama, LSU cannot be dark horses. It will never be unexpected to hear their names in the running for SEC title, natty title. Do you agree with that on Florida? I see where that texter is going, but I disagree with it on Florida right now.
I would too, because I think Florida's been out of that loop for a while now. Obviously Alabama's always been towards the top. LSU, they just played for the SEC championship game only a couple years ago. Florida, albeit they had won the championship game only 2 years before that, but they've been a lot more downtrodden in the couple years since. Again, that was the knock on Napier, is they kind of floated around 500, which isn't awful, but it's not great either. So they are farther removed from the conversation than an Alabama or LSU. So this would be them re-entering themselves in. So I think it's fair to say they can be a dark horse because the expectation for what Florida's at right now isn't very high.
Gotcha. 803-404-6100. So a little football preview there. And again, we'll continue to do it next Tuesday. We will look at the Oklahoma game. Efforting Paul Jones also from Mississippi State to look ahead to them. And we'll start getting into some of these games here as we now move out of the month of June and into July. I know you guys were worried it was going to be one full hour of nothing but giraffe talk and NBA trade talk with LaMelo Ball, but no, we got it back around. Coming up in the next hour, Doug Turnbull joins us, and Tyler's got a question. I don't know where it came from. I don't know what prompted it, but I want to talk about it. Looks fun. It's the Halftime Show. It is 1 o'clock on a Thursday as we are gearing up for tonight. What is tonight, you ask? Good question. USA and Turkey. That's right. No longer wanting to be confused with Thanksgiving Day and the food served. Turkey, the country, has somewhere along the line reinvented itself as Turkey.
Apparently this...
And I'm not joking about that. I know I get it. My English sometimes is wildly questionable, and that's at best. But that is legitimately the truth. I really learned that yesterday when they were describing this game.
Yeah, apparently this happened, I believe, in 2022. But it's kind of one of those things that, like, in the country of Turkey, the word turkey doesn't mean turkey. Yeah. So it's funny to us, but to them, I don't think it really means much of anything in terms of, like, what the name was.
Totally understand.
So, I don't know. Turkey, whatever we're going to call them. Carolina. The United States is playing them tonight. U.S. has already got its tickets punched to the elimination round. Turkey's not playing for anything, so this game's kind of a moot point.
That is the thing. I will be a little interested to kind of see how the USA handle. We've never been in this position. I think something like 1932 was the last time that we won the first 3 games in pool play or something of that nature. I mean, I'm not a USA soccer aficionado. I'm not going to sit here and recite off stats that I know to you, but I believe I'd heard that somewhere. So it'll be kind of interesting. Late game though, and I'll step a little bit and catch a little bit of it. It's not something I'm going to go out of my way to try and keep up with, though. But that'll be tonight. We have been keeping you updated on the escaped giraffe situation. No update. Gracie's still roaming free, and as we have now learned, we haven't gotten complete coverage. A lot of y'all are weighing in. Russ, I think, said he goes hunting in Texas. There's no giraffes there running around. Several of y'all have said, "Come on, Gunner." That's pretty common knowledge. Is it common knowledge? Is it common knowledge we don't have a herd of giraffes just roaming Wyoming or the Dakotas? Or
I mean, I thought
did they survive the cold like that? Because it gets cold in the.
I don't know. I mean, they're primarily from Africa, right?
Right. Yes.
So I think they're more of are they a desert type of animal? I don't know, but it was a fair question to ask. But no, there are not wild roaming giraffes in America. If you see a giraffe,
there's one.
If you see a giraffe, it's escaped from somewhere.
I also would like to point out to this: there's a $5,000 reward leading to the cat. I feel like that's low. For a giraffe, but I also realize that because the owner is telling neighbors to keep their eyes out, keep an eye out as if you wouldn't notice it. Like you're on your porch, you're having some sweet tea, you're talking to your significant other, you're like, "Hey, honey, how was your day?" Oh, there goes another giraffe wandering by. Like, oh, that's the Albertsons giraffe. That's John just wandering down the road.
Well, then you say, I wonder if that's the one that escaped.
Yeah.
Like no, it's the other one.
Yeah. No, it's the Joneses giraffe down the street. He's taking a while. This story is fascinating to me that a giraffe has gotten loose and this really is what happens in Florida, right?
Yes.
Like this is what the only thing that makes this story better is if it had been in Florida where a giraffe is just roaming around Florida.
In Florida, there'd be a guy riding the giraffe in like a bathrobe or something like that.
That's a good point.
Through the Wendy's drive.
Holding an alligator.
Florida man rides giraffe while wearing bathrobe through Wendy's drive-through. Like that's a Florida headline. You know what I mean?
Anyway. Gracie, by the way, today is the 25th. Gracie escaped on June 12th. Gracie is on a 2-week tear, just out and about, exploring the world, having a good time. So
she needs more credit. This is actually impressive.
It's actually a great point. Like how we don't.
You've gone undetected for 2 weeks.
All the technology we have in this country, and we can't find a giraffe.
And they don't have a tracker or like something on the animal in case this happens.
Nah.
It's concerning.
Leaky, Texas. A giraffe is on the lam and this is today. Yesterday they thought they'd found the giraffe, which how do you think you find a giraffe only to learn that you didn't find it?
I'd really love to know. Because that seems like something you'd be pretty darn sure of if you did.
Anyway, yeah. So there's your giraffe update.
It was just a really tall dog.
Really tall.
I don't know.
Really tall. 803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in on that. So, Tyler, you stumbled across an article. I believe it's on The Athletic. I always read it in the New York Times. Seth Emerson wrote it. And this is fascinating to me because it was really in my coming of age era for the University of South Carolina athletics. Give us a little background on what you felt, and we'll kind of go down this path here first for the next two segments before Doug Turnbull.
So specifically, college football's athletic team has been writing a lot of things about the 1990s this past couple weeks in reference, because the last time the World Cup was played in America was in 1994. So they're kind of having a 90s throwback type of thing in terms of the topics that they're writing about. And Seth Emerson covered the SEC for a long time, wrote this article specifically about South Carolina's 21-game losing streak between 1998 and 1999. That also obviously had to do with Lou Holtz coming in and taking over. We obviously know what would happen starting in the year 2000, but he more specifically focused on that losing streak. Eric Kimmery's got some quotes in there about it, of what it was like for the fans, what it was like for the players, and all that kind of stuff. And reading it, and I was aware of it, right? We talked about it with when Lou Holtz passed away a couple months ago, but like, I feel like in all the things we talk about in the history of college football, the turnaround from losing 21 straight games to winning, 8 and going to the Outback Bowl in 2000, I don't think that gets talked about enough. That is wildly impressive to have that kind of quick turnaround, and I just feel like it kind of flies under the radar personally.
Why do you feel that?
Why do I feel like it flies under the radar?
Yes.
Because it's South Carolina. And really up to that point, they were a program that, okay, you had Heisman Trophy winner. You won one ACC title back in 1969 and a bowl game a few years prior in, 95?
4.
94?
Well, 4, yeah.
Yeah. But really, that was kind of it. Like, it was a program that people probably didn't pay as much attention to outside this bubble. So as they're struggling, it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine, whatever. Now, and they wrote about in the article, when Holtz comes in, there's a lot more attention being paid because, like, hey, here's a national championship head coach. Lou Holtz coming out of retirement. He's at South Carolina now. Hey, they're not winning. What's happening? So the back half of the losing streak got more attention because Lou Holtz was the coach at that point in time. But and again, once he makes the turnaround, they're going to bowl games, they're winning bowl games, and all that kind of stuff. I feel like it kind of gets just lost in the shuffle, right? Like even the Lou Holtz era at South Carolina obviously is something that gets talked about here. But when he passed away a couple months ago, when you're watching tribute videos and stuff like that, people kind of glossed over it. This is almost like a chapter of his career that was like a weird footnote to a lot of people. Like, people don't want to talk about his time here as much outside of this bubble. Is something that I just kind of find odd.
So you got to go back, and I'm not picking on you. You weren't around for it, and in 2000. So let me take you back. We're going to do two segments on this, and then Doug Turnbull's coming up at 1:30. I tell you what, let's do this because I want to get long-winded on this. I see where you're going, and let's revisit this. If you haven't seen it, there's an article. Seth Emerson wrote it. I don't know if Seth was necessarily covering South Carolina at the time. He did cover, for people to forget, Seth did cover South Carolina for the state newspaper. I don't know if he was specifically covering it. That might have been Joe Person at the time. I don't quite remember. But anyway, Seth was here. But let's get into this a little bit because I'm going to take it down history or down history lane, I guess. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. But 98, 99 leading up to it, were wild situations, I think. And, where South Carolina is now is obviously a lot different. We'll talk about this article that is in The Athletic. You can always read it for free in the New York Times. I don't know how that always works, by the way, but I read it there. But we'll get back into this. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Oh, it is 1:15. Coming up in about 15 minutes, our good buddy, Doug Turnbull, where, Tyler, you falling behind? NASCAR Survivor Challenge.
Well, to be fair, we all three have picked Connor Zilic at this point in time. You know what his average finish is? By the way, we've all three picked him on a road or a street course, which is his area of expertise. This is what he is the best at doing.
Okay.
And his average finish for our three picks is 23.6.
It's not good.
It's not good. I didn't finish last because here's the thing. He and SVG got caught up in the same wreck. However, he ends up being scored in front of SVG. So I did finish one spot ahead of Doug, who had SVG, who finished 38th.
Okay. So where do we where are the point standings?
You are leading 44 to Doug's 43 to my 34.
Oh, okay. All right. And we're what do we think? We're a little past the halfway point. We're past the halfway point.
Ooh, how many races in are we? That's a good question.
Well, we'll see that.
We are. That was race number 17. We are this weekend at Sonoma. We'll be halfway
Okay.
for the season.
All right, so we're at the halfway point. All right, we'll talk about that coming up in the next segment. So there's an article, and it looks like it just I didn't even look at the buy date on it. That Seth Emerson wrote
yesterday, 2 days ago.
Okay,
It was this week.
The title. This is in the Athletic. You can go and read it. The title: South Carolina lost 21 games. This is the title: South Carolina lost 21 games in a row in the 90s, but there was a silver lining. And basically, let me also just point this out. It says, editors notice the World Cup continues in the United States for the first time since 1994. The Athletic is looking back at college sports in the 90s and how much has changed since then.
Yes.
It says, join us for a couple weeks of off-season football and basketball nostalgia. And Seth Emerson writes the article. Seth, of course, I don't know if he was here at that time covering South Carolina. So for transparency and for background, I, at this time, Tyler, am going from 98, I was a junior in high school. 99, I was a senior. In 2000, was a freshman. My first year was a freshman at the University of South Carolina. My family, have been big fans since I can remember. I remember my mother passed away when I was 9, but I can remember her yelling and screaming at TV as loud as anybody in the family.
Yeah.
So I've grown up around it. I've been around it my entire life. I've had the jersey. I'll never forget, folks. I'll tell you, another story. I think it was like in the early 90s after my mother had passed away, and I was learning, right? Unfortunately, a lot of our kids are learning. South Carolina lost a game to Clemson. Nealon Green was the quarterback, and as I'm walking out of the stadium, I was so upset. I took my Carolina jersey off, and my dad yelled at me. He was like, you're a fan.
Yeah.
Win or lose, you're a fan. You don't take that jersey off. Yeah. And at that point, I was like, I think I was like at 12. I was like, I might be making some bad career decisions. But
can I change my mind? Get another option?
Yeah. Is this like a family? Do we have to stick with this?
I'm committed to this for life.
But so background, I'm in it with y'all. 44, 43, 44. Poor Austin, my son is going through it a couple years ago when Rattler threw the backwards pass to Xavier Legette and Clemson, and all I could do is put my arm around him and be like, I don't know what happened, son, but this happens. This is your destiny and your future. I'm sorry.
Now, did you give him the option to choose something else?
My daughter has taken Georgia, which I'm proud of her.
Okay.
Which again, as I mentioned the other day, is like part family. She's following that side of the family. She is a Gamecock fan. She's got a Gamecock jersey and so forth and so on. But Austin is there with me, and that Clemson game when Rattler throws the backwards pass, I'm just like, I think he was 12 or 11. I'm just like, yep, welcome to the club. Yeah. It's a great way to be introduced. So
no, I can't explain it. It just happens.
I say all that to let you know where I was at, to let Tyler know where I was at in 98, 99, 2000. I'm a big fan. 98 was a shocker. I'll tell another story. In 1998, South Carolina was playing Ball State. Some of you in this particular end zone may remember this. My father had a heat stroke and had to be, sorry, Dad, for telling the story, had to be stretchered out in the first half.
Okay.
Got to our side. We were over there. I don't even know, one of the corners where the opposing team's band is now. We were in the corner and had to be stretchered out. I stayed behind for the game. He lived. He's still alive today, thankfully. And I'm thankful I stayed because that was the last time we would see South Carolina win for almost 2 years.
Oh, no.
But it was a hot. I remember that. The Ball State. I never forget the Ball State game. But people didn't see what was coming. Like with the Brad Scott era, Tyler, it had been up and down, up and down, up and down. You'd win a game, and then you'd just blow a game, or then you'd get just blown out. And at that point, we're doing the Orange Crush at the end of the year, where Tennessee and Florida are just blowing everybody out of the water. But you got to play them back to back. Clemson's the rivalry. You couldn't beat them. It's just a bad end of the season every time. And South Carolina's got some great players that are coming through. Deuce Staley and Steve Taneyhill, are just to name a few, and all these great players. And Tyler, 98 escalates on us. Georgia wins at Williams-Brice 17-13. Georgia was number 13. Marshall comes into town. That was, as the article states, a Marshall team that finished 12-1 with Chad Pennington as quarterback.
Was that Randy Moss on that team?
No,
because none of was his last year.
Right.
Yeah.
This is so this is 98, but I don't think he was on that team. They win 24-21, and then I'll never forget. And this is when I felt like everything really turned on South Carolina. They play a noon game. I remember tailgating with high school friends. I remember going out, and it's a noon game. And it's hot. It's in September. It's hot. It's blazing hot. And South Carolina wears all black uniforms. And Mississippi State runs the kickoff back, and they win 38-0.
Yeah.
And after that, I just feel like a lot of people checked out. I remember the next week against Mississippi, South Carolina's on the road. I remember listening to it on the radio. They had a big tight end, Rufus something, who caught a touchdown pass in the final minutes, and the play-by-play announcer for Carolina made it sound like a miraculous catch. South Carolina went to Kentucky and lost by 5. So now you've lost 3 of your first 6 games. You're 1-5, but you've lost 3 of them by 5 points or less.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't get it done. Then you get Arkansas, who is ranked, you lose. Vanderbilt was the heartbreaker. That's when you said the season's over. You lose 17-14. Tennessee blows you out of the water in Columbia. Florida blows you out of the water, and Clemson finishes it off 28-19. And so you fire Brad Scott. And I'll never forget the excitement for Lou Holtz and what he meant. And when he comes in, and I know a lot of you are the same way, whether you went or you didn't, went to Raleigh or watched at home and watched that Hurricane game. And Derek Watson's the running back, and we had fought and scrapped and clawed to get Derek Watson, not let him go to Tennessee, and he's going to be the savior. And he runs for 100 yards, but South Carolina can't score. They just fumble. They fumble all over the place, 8 times, according to the article. And I was in Georgia the next week in Athens, and South Carolina can't score. And I remember thinking after that one, and it's 24-9, like, we might have a problem.
Yeah.
And obviously things escalated. The next 2 years, as great as the Steve Spurrier years were, they were such a surprise. 8-4 and 9-3. I think they were the best years of my life as a side. Now, part of it is I was in college. Okay, let's be clear about that.
That helped.
I got to enjoy that. But Tyler, I'll tell you nationally, and I don't know how. Let's see, you're 25, so you're about 4 or 5. The national perspective of South Carolina, and I'll throw something else in there. South Carolina, the following year in 2001, is in the middle of this renaissance, and they go play the first game after 9/11. And it's it's Lou Holtz, and it's South Carolina, and Preston will tell you, Preston's great with this story about getting on the plane and everything. But I will tell you, the turnaround, I'll never forget, South Carolina rallies and beats Mississippi State in 2000. Cameron throws the fade, and I remember going home, getting on the computer, and the headline on the ESPN.com, Petty and the Heartbreakers moved to 4-0. And it was everywhere. And it was Lou, and Lou Holtz was doing what Lou Holtz did. But Tyler, you said, well, why doesn't it get the attention that maybe it deserves? The last 3 years were so bad. And they were only 5-7, but they were so bad. And then you end with the brawl, which was so ugly and such a bad game. And the program was so out of control. I don't know what you know about the weeks post Lou Holtz, the transition to Steve Spurrier. You have players stealing pictures out of the hallway, out of the locker room, stealing pictures of themselves. I mean, the whole thing, Tyler, for as far as it got taken in a positive direction, went almost back the complete other way to where Steve Spurrier steps into almost an entirely complete rebuild. You were playing guys on the offensive line in 2005 who almost had never played on the offensive line. Right. I mean, it was back to square one. Right. Lou Holtz took it as far as he could with the second Ohio State victory. And Preston will tell you, Preston's great. I loved our morning show with Preston and Preston talking about that 2002 season, about where they were in that loss to Georgia 14-7. That's the Pollock strip. That's the Pennick fumble at the goal line, and Preston really breaking down. But Tyler, the 8-4 and the 9-3 got so much attention, and I'll tell you again, 11 wins under Spurrier was awesome. I mean, it was truly, truly incredible. But I think if you were to make South Carolina fans think, because of where the 8-4 and the 9-3 came from, it was the best 2 years of South Carolina football ever because of the surprises of it. There were downs.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the way that era ended, and we all knew Lou Holtz was a Notre Dame guy. Like, Steve Spurrier's at least come back around, right?
Sure.
Spurrier's made himself, to my knowledge, we never, ever, ever, ever honored Lou Holtz again. Ever. Lou Holtz never, to my knowledge, he never attended another game. To my knowledge, we never, at half court, at a basketball game or a football game, honored Lou Holtz. When he walked off after the Clemson game, if it was garnet and black, it was donated to whatever local church he had.
Sure.
And it's almost like, in a way, Lou Holtz dropped his association with South Carolina, whereas Steve Spurrier kept his. Now, South Carolina to their side, and maybe they reached out, and maybe they didn't. But you're right, it never felt like there was a connection afterwards. But those 5 and 7 seasons and the way things, and you got the 63-17 game against Clemson, and I was there that night, and it was so ugly. You and I could have played better safety, and the story is Lou Holtz took over the safeties. It was such an ugly ending to what was such a once great start that I think people pushed it out of his mind. And then, of course, to your point, you bring in Steve Spurrier.
Yeah.
You somehow top Lou Holtz, who was the name at the time. That's why I think you see it doesn't get the attention it deserves. But it was, to me, 2000 and 2001 were the greatest years of my South Carolina football life because it was 5 interceptions. People will talk about that. That stadium held 70 or 80,000. Apparently that day there was 240,000 people in that stadium.
It's one of those things that everybody says they were there for.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a fair way to look at it when you lay it out like that. That makes a lot of sense. And again, I was looking at this as somebody that, again, I was alive during that time, but I don't have conscious memories of it or what was being said or how it was being, talked about in the media and stuff like that. But the way you kind of lay that out makes a lot of sense in terms of what did happen for those short couple of years. Again, kind of reverted back to 5 and 7 after that. And then, of course, Spurrier taking it over and taking it to the heights that it had never seen before, to where it pushed the Holtz era kind of off to the side. Like, well, you got even better when Spurrier got in here. Now, again, we credit Holtz coming with the reason that Spurrier would even come in the first place, because that Holtz don't get Spurrier. But again, Spurrier being the best coach this program's ever had does kind of cast that shadow over what Holtz did to set up for that.
Joey says Holtz came back in 2012 as the commencement speaker for Carolina. I didn't know that. Awesome. Now, I didn't know that. That's kind of, I hate to say it, though, that there just never was a connection. I hate that. I hate that Lou Holtz was never honored on the field. I don't know off the top of my head if we ever honored the 2000, like if we ever brought the 2000. They should bring the 2000 and 2001 teams out onto the field. This season, this 25-year anniversary of the 2001 team, the 9-3 team. They honestly should. As many guys, that's all part of bringing you guys back.
Need Preston to come out of the cockaboose.
Yeah, Preston and Langston coming out of the cockaboose. But yeah, that's how it went. That's what I kind of read. But unfortunately, you see, there was just a line of things that happened.
That makes a lot. You laid it out very well. That's a really good explanation.
Doug Turnbull. We'll talk some NASCAR. Our Doug Fireball Turnbull joins us next. It's the halftime show.
a superstar, and he's showing us why.
The Star is born here today. It's America 250. It's a red, white, and blue paint scheme. And a young superstar is going to get it done. In his 13th career start, it's Corey Heim who will win at Naval Base Coronado.
Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave on your Thursday here on the game. That's called Sunday on Prime. Yes, indeed. Corey Heim, in only his 13th career start, picks up his first ever NASCAR Cup Series victory. Before even going full-time, he'll be full-time with 23-11 coming up next season, but a huge win nonetheless as you bring in our guy Doug Turnbull from the Performance Racing Network. Join us on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Doug, we knew at some point in the future we're going to be talking about Corey winning some Cup Series races. Don't know if we predicted it happening this fast, though.
It was certainly not predicted, but I will say I've heard other people in the NASCAR verse say they were shocked by it. I'm not shocked because he's run up front a little bit, and just like I wouldn't be shocked if Connor Zilic won or somebody else that's young and really good at road courses and or a really polished driver overall. It's more pleasantly surprised considering that Shane Van Gisbergen was the odds-on favorite, and the aforementioned Zilic also is extremely good on road courses, though Zilic has never won a road course race. So Heim, what I thought was really impressive, and maybe the part that was more shocking, is Heim managed to outduel Tyler Reddick, who's won 5 races this year in the Daytona 500 and is really good at road courses and is his teammate and on and on and on. He straight up outdueled him, and Reddick did make a pass on him and rough him up a little bit and decided to give Heim the spot back, thinking, hey, I'm going to pass him again. And that's exactly what I thought when I saw it, too. And I thought, sure enough, he's going to deke him, so to speak, they call it baseball, right? Dive under him, do something, and force him into a mistake. And it never happened. In fact, Heim helped force Reddick into a mistake. And it went the other way, and Reddick ended up losing a tire and falling way back. So what an impressive win, and it's a win, like you said, in his 13th career start. Also, too, and this, hey, South Carolina, I know you're listening, but look, it's the first time in 62 years. Let me say that again. First time in 64 years that 2 Georgia drivers have won in the same Cup Series season, going back to 1962, Rex White and Jack Smith. So take that one to the bank.
Yeah. It's a good little bit of information there. Also, another first-time winner this year as well to go along with Carson Hocevar at Talladega and Ty Gibbs at Bristol. And we could talk about the future of the sport so much. And these young guys coming along. And again, you've already got, Zilic, who, again, we hope he'll find his way to victory lane at some point in the near future. Well, a lot of promise with him. Hocevar already being to victory lane. Heim going full-time next year. You see these pieces of guy or the future of the sport kind of being led by this type of group of guys that are starting to come into their own a little bit.
It's right here. The next generation is here. And the other people in that next generation that aren't already in Cup Series or sort of betrothed to rides, if you will. If you think of Jesse Love, who will be in the 21 next year for Wood Brothers. And then it's widely believed that Brent Cruz will be the replacement for Denny Hamlin when Hamlin steps away, which is believed to be after next season, though none of that is technically in stone, right? But it's sort of hard to imagine where the next wave or where part of this wave goes because there's so much stagnation with people that are vested in the Cup Series, and people that are, quote, the old guard now are like Joey Logano, who's only 35 or 36, right? He's 36. The people that are even the old guard are like Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney because they've been in the Cup Series a decade or plus, and they're young. So if I'm somebody that's 18 or 19 right now and I'm not considered a prodigy like Brent Cruz, I'm really wondering where I'm going. In fact, as you mentioned, these guys are doing well, like Hocevar and so on and so forth, and, of course, Corey Heim. But if I'm someone that's like in my mid-20s, Chandler Smith, upper 20s, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, who was the next big thing and just never quite landed in a Cup ride, right? I'm going, where is my path forward without a major sponsor coming along and basically kicking someone outside of a ride? So it's really fascinating to watch these next couple of years where the prospects come from and where they go.
He is Doug Turnbull joining us as he does each and every Thursday, our NASCAR expert to go along with our station expert and Tyler Head and then me. Real quick, you guys, to go back, I know this was brand new at Coronado. did it go off as much? I mean, is this maybe a yearly thing now, and every other year thing? Like, what has been the reviews on what this was? Because it was so neat to be on an Air Force base.
Well, and obviously this coincided with America 250,
Right,
the 250th
exactly.
Birthday of the U.S. Navy. So it was a special event to tie into this year. There's a possibility they could be running it again in the future. There's no confirmation on that, but I thought over the weekend it went well. There were some things they had to adjust in terms of concessions and lines and fan accommodations and stuff like that. It sounds like NASCAR listened to things as the weekend went along and made adjustments as they could. There's always going to be bumps and stuff like that when you do this event for the first time. But I would say, Doug, overwhelmingly, this was very overwhelmingly positively reviewed when it was all said and done. The visuals were incredible. The track was really good. Obviously, there were some nasty hits and stuff like that, but the racing itself was really, really good in all three series, and overall, I'd say the weekend was successful.
Well, and I think the reviews were pretty good also for the other new things we've done over the last few years, in particular on the road course side with the Chicago street course, but also the reviews were really good at the Busch Clash at the LA Coliseum that first year, where they built a whole, quarter-mile oval inside of the LA Coliseum. So, but look, I do think that there's a more likely than not chance that NASCAR goes to Coronado another year, or probably next year. But I don't see this as becoming a fixture on the schedule like another new racetrack might. Just because I think the newness will wear off, and then will the juice be worth the squeeze? And we have seen with this sport, we've already come and gone from Road America. We've already killed off the Charlotte Roval, right? That 2018 to 2025, 8 years of the Roval. We're done with that. We only had 3 years of the Busch Clash, and now that's being run for twice in a row at Bowman Gray Stadium in North Carolina. Or, once in a row. That was the first one. No, it was twice in a row. Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, I don't think it's something as great as it was. I think it was great also because it was new, and because it was the 250th birthday. But I do agree, guys, that it went really well, and I was certainly glued to the tube for it.
Yeah, and again, NASCAR is trying a lot of new things in this next-gen era, and this is one of them. But right, it kind of has that 2 to 3 year window as they'll try something, kind of gets old a little bit, and they go on to the next thing. So we'll see if they decide to keep this for 2026 and, what they decide to do in terms of their next adventure and where they can take a racetrack again. But really, really cool to see the unique things they've been doing over these past couple years. Doug, you and I were in a really good position this past weekend when it came to our picks. Unfortunately, they both kind of went into the wall with each other, and we both finished 37th and 38th respectively. So congratulations, Bill, on being the lead.
I had Austin Hill also in my NASCAR.com fantasy league. I lost the whole deal in that turn. So that was tough, and I thought about this show as well, and that was a tough corner.
So Bill, you lead our standings right now by having Michael McDowell with the highest finish this past weekend with 44 points. Doug in second with 43. Be bringing up the rear with 34. So as we head to another road course this upcoming weekend, a more traditional one in Sonoma, we have Doug making the first pick. I will tell you, though, SVG and Connor Zilic officially off the boards. By the way, our average finish with Zilic for the three of us, 23.6, and SVG 13.6. All on road courses, by the way.
Yeah, you would have thought they'd be higher just because, especially SVG's money on them. Okay, hey, Bill took McDowell last week. I'll take McDowell this week. He's one of the best drivers, statistics-wise, at Sonoma, though he's never won there. So Michael McDowell, car 71 for me. And I'll be there, by the way, calling turns for PRN. So I'm excited to root that on.
Boom, there you go. Well, if we're going to get a road course and got his options available, I'm going to go with A.J. Allmendinger. Also came away with solid finish this past weekend in San Diego. Bill, you have the last pick.
I'm going for the throat, baby. I'm going for the lead. We're going to wrap them up and close them off the board. Give me Tyler Reddick.
Okay.
Give me Tyler Reddick. I think, what you mentioned, I was probably going to take him anyway, but going back to what I think it was Doug, you were saying about the mistake he made, felt like he was in position in Coronado, maybe felt that by slowing down, I can forget how you phrased it, that he would get the lead back, then lost a tire and fell apart. Doesn't happen this week. Reddick takes it home this week.
And with that, we have an 8-point gap between him and Denny Hamlin for the battle for the regular season championship. This is heating up a lot, Doug. Last 30 seconds here.
Yeah, that battle's heating up too, and honestly, I thought there was a point at the very end at San Diego where Hamlin might do Hamlin things and win that race and win his fourth in a row. The streak was broken there. Also, watch Kyle Larson; he's knocking on the door a lot, and I just feel like Sonoma's a great place where he's won before that he could break through too.
Doug, enjoy the weekend out in Sonoma, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. Honored to be on.
We'll come back and wrap up hour number 2 of the halftime show into Thursday on the game.
Thank you to our good buddy, Doug Turnbull, in our NASCAR Survivor Challenge, to which, look out, we're at the halfway point, and the Gunner's got the lead. That's right. 44 points to 43 for Doug to 34 for Tyler.
See, I'm looking at the people that you have not picked yet.
I see that.
That's what makes this interesting because, again, you got to pick everybody at least once.
I know.
So Doug and I have used up some of the back end of the field type of guys already, and you still got to use those.
I got
so
you.
this back half of the season is going to get interesting.
Don't worry. Don't you worry. I got a plan. I got a strategy, and right now, I told you I went Tyler Reddick. I'm going for the throat here to go up. I'm going for the victory. Normally I'm playing for like point for like a 3-2-1. I'm going up for all 5 this week to try and jump up on y'all pretty good there. And then we'll kind of go from there. But thank you, as always, to Doug Turnbull for joining us. And, of course, our NASCAR Survivor Challenge. A lot of fun. Good time doing it. We'll have to get a trophy made or something, as we always do around here, and celebrate. Let the winner do some serious celebrating come the end of the year. 803-404-6100. News of the day. It's been a rather quiet day. Last night was the second round of the NBA draft. Not a whole lot going on there. The major news of the day, if you're into it, the Charlotte Hornets have traded LaMelo Ball to the Minnesota Timberwolves. If you're into the NBA, I get into it. The trade did catch my interest a little bit. Ball, I don't know how you feel. Thankfully, we've not ever had to discuss this. All the Ball brothers, annoying.
Sure.
Just all of them.
Well, Dad's annoying first.
Well, yeah. Lonzo actually was the least annoying of all of them, and then he's pretty much just been hurt and really can't do anything. LaMelo was pretty annoying himself, and then the third one stunk, and his dad just tried to get him in the league. But with that being said, LaMelo leaves Charlotte, and I was kind of pulling for Charlotte. They were starting to kind of put something together. Now, I don't know what their point guard situation is, where they're going to go like this. They did draft Christian Anderson, I believe, last night in the second round, or they drafted him this past week. So I'm not real sure what their plan is, because they have some nice young talent.
Yeah, and again, they're a team that was in the play-in this time around, or made it into the play-in in the NBA playoffs, and then they got Detroit. They won the first game, I believe.
Got the play-in game.
Won the play-in game, and then did they go to Detroit in that first round?
I don't remember.
I think they did. I think they won that first game in Detroit. Whoever they lost to did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Because
I'd have to go back and look.
They got eliminated in the play-in, and then whoever beat them won that first round game at Detroit, I believe.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and look. But
the NBA offseason,
they beat Miami.
That's right.
They beat Miami, and then were crushed by the Magic.
That's what it was.
Yes,
that's what it was. Because the Magic went to Detroit, won the first game. Okay.
Right.
The NBA postseason is very long. It's hard to remember all these things.
I understand.
But they were at least in the play-in, won one of those games. That was a really cool environment they had up there at the Spectrum Center, really cool rockets and all that kind of stuff. So they're making positive strides.
So we'll see. That was kind of the big news of the NBA and the WNBA. And I admitted this last week. I don't really watch the WNBA, but this stuff going on, look, I didn't, whether it's Caitlin Clark or not. Caitlin Clark is the face of the WNBA, right? Like, is that?
Oh, yeah, 1,000%.
And obviously she's there with Aaliyah Boston and now Raven Johnson. And so it's like South Carolina North. But they do let this poor girl get beat up on. Like, I've never seen anything like it. And I say this as I was watching highlights the other day, and they're showing what was going on with Caitlin Clark. Aaliyah Boston got punched the other night. By the way, it should have been something done. But, yeah, have you ever seen a league allow their superstar to be beat up on like Caitlin Clark does?
No, and they got to be careful about that, right? Like, she's a moneymaker. Like, she is what draws a lot of eyeballs to that sport, whether they want to admit it or not. And, look, there's a lot of stars in that league and stuff like that, but she moves the needle more than anybody else. She's the one that gets a lot of people to watch, brings television ratings up, ticket sales, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you gotta protect your cash cow at some point.
I mean, again, I don't sit down and watch the games. Asia's the best player in the league and is probably going to end up being the best player, like the true actual GOAT. But Caitlin Clark is the one that people tune into and is the one that drives that league. And, yeah, they let her it's actually, when we talk about LeBron being protected and Jordan in the later years being protected, even though, the Pistons beat up on him.
Sure.
When he was young, what they do with Caitlin Clark is crazy. Anyway, all right, we'll talk a lot of college basketball. Lamont Paris spoke yesterday. We're going to let you hear from him. They've pulled me back in. I'll tell you why. I love what South Carolina's doing in basketball. Now we're next. Bill Gunner for Old Timey Meat Market, which is truthfully kind of like my second home right now. I'm basically telling you about where my second home is because I've been at Old Timey Meat Market so much lately, picking out their delicious line of steaks. We've gone with salmon lately. About a week and a half ago, I picked out a really great cut of tuna. I don't ever talk about their tuna, but they have absolutely fantastic tuna. I put it on the Blackstone and seared it up. My daughter and I loved it. I'm telling you what, if you're looking for your next great dinner, Old Timey Meat Market is your absolute must-go-to stop. One of their 3 locations, St. Andrews Road in Irmo, South Congaree, or, of course, the Lexington store. And you know what? 4th of July is just around the corner, and nothing makes 4th of July better than a brand-new Traeger grill. And Lexington is your Traeger grill home. Go check out the great line of grills they have. Austin, my son, was looking at them over the weekend and now thinks we need a new one. That's how great they are. Stop by and find out for yourself. Old Timey Meat Market. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. Here's a little something for you, Clemson fans. I just came across this on the Twitter account. Georgetown. I love college. Y'all know it. We're going to talk a lot of college basketball this hour. South Carolina, Lamont Paris. Lamont Paris spoke yesterday, and we'll talk about what he had to say and talk about why I like the offseason for South Carolina and what they've done, why I think it's been a great offseason. Also, there's a major issue with South Carolina basketball, and I'll explain that. But for Clemson fans, Georgetown, a big name, will make an appearance at Little John Coliseum on November the 13th, a Friday night. As Georgetown put out their non-conference schedule, I was just kind of glancing at it on Twitter, and it says right here that they will play at Clemson. So, Tigers, I don't know if Clemson knows. I don't know, Clemson fans, if you know your non-conference schedule. Obviously, you got a game against South Carolina. Gamecocks know they've got a game against the Tigers. But just a little game to add that, kind of interesting, kind of neat. There was a back in the day. I still am. I still like him. Still good friends with him. Back in the day, I would have no problem traveling up to see Brad Burnell's team take on some good opponents. And it was pre-Brad Burnell. It was Oliver Purnell. But I remember still going up to see them play when I was in college, Seton Hall. And, Eddie Griffin, I think was his name. Eddie Griffin, who unfortunately passed away, was killed. Remember, he went to the NBA, was with the Rockets, got killed in a train wreck, got hit by a train, actually. And then they had Shaneen Holloway then, too, who now doing big things as a coach at Seton Hall. But neat little thing there for Clemson fans. We're awaiting the South Carolina schedule. We do know that South Carolina will play a non-conference game against Maryland on December 19th, and that's pretty exciting. And we're going to get into it this hour and let you hear a little bit of Lamont Paris from yesterday and all he had to say, Tyler, because as I mentioned, I didn't want to be this excited on June 25th for basketball season because there's a long way to go. But here I am, very invested and interested to see what they're about to put out on the court. Now, I don't know what it's going to be. I'm not trying to make it a proclamation and say, yes, this is an NCAA tournament team, or yes, this is a 500. I'm just really, interested to see what they are.
Yeah, I think you're maybe on the rare side of people that are a little more positive right now. Because
I don't know if I'm positive. I'm just
more optimistic, I guess.
I think I'm one of the few that's actually looking forward to it.
Yeah. There's an anticipation and excitement because I think a lot of people are maybe dreading what's going to happen, right? And some of the comments that Paris made yesterday certainly got people maybe even a little bit more riled up, whether justified or not. Again, I go back to this every time we talk about this basketball team. It's truly a wait and see, right? We can evaluate these guys. You hope it translates, and it's not just playing the Maryland or playing Clemson or teams like that in the non-conference will give you a little bit of an idea of how good they are, but really it boils down to, are you winning games in the SEC? Because you haven't done that a whole lot in the past 2 years. So by the end of January of 2027, we'll have a pretty good gauge on if the season's going well or not, because you'll be close to halfway through conference play at that point in time. And if you only have 1 or 2 conference wins by the end of January, you're in rough shape. Yeah. If you're around 500, okay, things looking all right.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend this hour selling y'all that this is a NCAA tournament team and that you need to jump on board. Now I now have an anticipation of basketball season and really am interested and excited. And I like that we're seeing at least some non-conference games being put together that will have me interested in November, December. We'll talk about that.
We also learned home and away for the SEC as well.
Yes, and we'll get to that. We'll get to some schedule stuff coming up. Before we do that, because we are dedicated to our profession and we want to keep you updated as much as possible. Just 12 minutes ago, the San Antonio Express News has released information that Gracie, the giraffe, still missing.
You got my hopes up for a second there.
Unfortunately.
I thought you were going to tell me that a good Samaritan had found her and received their $5,000, though that's still a little bit low.
There is a meme of Gracie dressed as a firefighter next to a firefighter truck helping out. But yes, reports that she is back home are untrue, according to the owners. Gracie, the giraffe. We are covering this unlike anybody. We want you to stay up to date on all the Gracie news that you can get. And so I am keeping you. I can't speak for Tyler and Dave, who are probably ready to smack me over the head with a microphone. But we are keeping you updated, unlike anybody else, because as soon as Gracie is found, a celebration will be held, maybe at Village Idiot, to celebrate the return of Gracie to her home ranch. Gracie the Draft on the loose. And from what we learned earlier in the program, if you were listening, or what I learned, maybe you already knew this, maybe you're just smarter than me, that now makes the total number of loose giraffes in this country one wild giraffe.
It's kind of one of those things like your chances of being attacked by a giraffe aren't high, but they're never zero.
Right.
So if you are out and about anywhere in America right now, so with those slim, you could be attacked by a giraffe.
So we are at Gracie Watch 2026 in full effect here.
I say, Gracie, run free. Do not turn her in. She should be free to eat trees and leaves forever.
And Dave is pulling for Gracie. I'm not anti-Gracie being free. I don't know if we can get another giraffe over here to turn loose, and we can get some mating going on and some more giraffes. Where we can build a wild giraffe population. That is not anywhere near my area of expertise, but it is a fun summer story as we count down the days slowly. 73 days till
70. Today's 72.
72 days.
We are shed Surratt days away from the season.
Okay, so yeah, something to keep us entertained. We did, if you want to hear some legitimate football discussion, we did have David Waters on back in the 12 o'clock hour to go back and to recycle that conversation for a minute. We talked Florida. We're going to start our previews now of this season in the SEC, and so we'll have some different people on throughout the week talking about what's going on at the particular school prior to SEC media days. We had David Waters on from Florida today, and I am circling that game as the game of the year. Going into the bye week, South Carolina should be no worse than 4-1. If they are, let's be honest, if they're not 4-1,
we got other problems.
I don't think Shane Beamer's on the hot seat quite like some of y'all do. I don't think his seat is necessarily safe. But if they're 3-2, they've had a loss somewhere, Mississippi State or Kentucky, that's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
That's pretty ugly. Both of those games are at home. And then obviously Towson and Kent State, and then you got the trip to Bama. So they should be 4-1 going to Gainesville for an early game. Florida opens with Florida Atlantic and Campbell, and then has games against Auburn, Mississippi, and Missouri. So it's not out of the realm of possibility both teams are 5-0. It's not out of the realm of possibility both teams are 4-1. It's not out of the realm of possibility that both teams are 2-3. We don't, you just don't know. So point being is, I think for both teams, that's a massive game in Gainesville for John Summerall. I think that's going to be the first one. Real quick, not to go down the path, what is your expectation of Mississippi? There's a reason I'm asking.
Ole Miss?
Yes.
Okay. I expect them to be pretty good. I don't know if I put a pencil.
So you would look at Florida. The reason is you would look at Florida, Mississippi, and be like, that's probably a loss for Florida.
Probably.
Whereas Florida's going to look at, as you mentioned, that South Carolina game, they got to go to Auburn.
Sure.
They got to go to Missouri. You mentioned the Mississippi games. So the South Carolina game for them is the first one. They're like, we can get that one.
Yeah, I think they look at that as kind of their sigh of relief, right? As we mentioned a little bit earlier, after that, you got Texas. They have a bye, and then it's Georgia. Is it Tennessee and Oklahoma?
No, it's Georgia. It's Texas bye, and then I think it's Georgia, then Oklahoma.
Okay, and over the course of 4 weeks essentially there. So they've got their toughest slate of the schedule coming up right after playing South Carolina. That's, again, an early kick at home. So I think they kind of look at that game as their opportunity to kind of breathe a sigh of relief a little bit, get themselves right before they get into that tough stretch. And for South Carolina, it's kind of a similar thing because they have their bye week right after that, and then they have their toughest stretch of the season, which is the final 6 games of the year. You got Arkansas included in there, but every other game going to be tough for one degree or another, mainly featuring teams that were in the college football playoff a year ago. Tennessee coming to Williams-Rice Stadium is always going to be tough. And then, of course, you have the rivalry game with Clemson at the end of the season, too. Yeah,
and again, the fact that the bye week is that week, it'll be an early game, so maybe you don't get the swamp as loud as it typically would be. It's going to be one of those games, again, for South Carolina. And, again, I asked the question earlier, and I know some of you are going to be point blank about this. because it matters to some people. You've got a coach in year one trying to rebuild a program and a coach in year five that should have his best team and maybe one of the better South Carolina teams that we've had over the last decade. There's going to be a lot of people who say there's no real reason you should lose this game to a first-year head coach, even though I think Florida is probably as talented as South Carolina, just in different ways.
Well, and as I said this a little bit earlier, and this is something that David Waters alluded to when we talked to him, like, this is a guy in John Summerall. He's been a head coach for basically as long as Beamer has. His first year at Troy's back in 2022, and he's used to coming in and having success right away. 12-2 in his first year at Troy, 9-5 in his first year at Tulane. Obviously, they had the great season in his second year there, but making it into the college football playoffs. So this is a guy that's used to coming in and hitting the ground running. Now, doing in the SEC is obviously different than doing in the Sun Belt or doing in the American Athletic Conference, but like, I don't think there's any reason to think that Beamer has this massive coaching advantage over him, because Summerall's a really darn good head coach. He just hasn't done it in the SEC yet.
Right.
That's the reason why he got this job.
Yep. So we'll see exactly how that plays out, but we've talked a lot about that. You can go back and catch that and hear an update on Florida from David Waters, who does a phenomenal job, Gator Breakdown, on our podcast page. Go to the 1075 The Game website, click on the halftime show, click on the shows tab, click on the halftime show, and that is sitting there for you to go and re-listen to. And he talked a little bit about Aaron Philo coming over with Buster Faulkner. I will say this, and you can go listen to it yourself. I was a little surprised to hear that it's more of a quarterback competition than them just handing the job to Aaron Philo there at Florida.
Well, Philo has the advantage of coming over with Buster Faulkner and being familiar with the system, but he played very little in his 2 years at Georgia Tech. I think he took over for Haynes King. I think got injured because he took so many hits against NC State, not this past year, but the year prior, led him to a victory there. But everything else past then, it seems like it's kind of been spot duty a little bit. So he's not played a ton of college football up to this point. Again, familiar with the system goes a long way, but I don't think it was a slam dunk guarantee that he was definitely going to get this job. Now, again, he followed Buster Faulkner, assuming he was going to probably, but I'm not surprised to hear that this is still a battle going into camp.
803-404-6100. So that was a little bit of football talk for you earlier. So we've covered it all today, whether it is Gracie the Draft or the South Carolina football team with the Florida game. I talked a little bit about an article in The Athletic, a really good article that's just kind of reminiscing about the Lou Holtz era at the University of South Carolina, specifically the losing streak, but then the turnaround that followed. We talked a little bit about that. That's also on our podcast page, and you can check that out. And then, of course, thanks as always to Doug Turnbull for joining us for our NASCAR segment. Coming up next, though, we talk some men's basketball. Lamont Paris held a summer meeting yesterday with the media and got into a lot of things going on. We'll break it down. I'll tell you why I am back invested. It is the halftime show. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. That's right, Mid-State Roofing. You know, the company that has been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for over 30 years, making sure your family, my family, our businesses have kept the operation dry and running because of the work they do. But the main reason that they have been the leader in the industry, customer service, being there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can have a leak occur at any point. I don't know if you're aware of this. Leaks don't know how to tell time. They just tend to happen. But Mid-State Roofing understands that, and that's why you can call them at midnight, at 1 a.m., at 2 a.m., whenever a leak may occur, and they are there to help you. 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You'll speak with someone at Mid-State Roofing, so call them today. Line up a maintenance contract and tell them Bill Gunner sent you. So, South Carolina basketball, it's just kind of in a quiet place, kind of like everything else, kind of in a quiet place, but things are happening. Things have been occurring quietly. Literally at times with Lamont Paris, very, very quietly. But that's okay. That's no problem. It's livable. Just fix it, right? Just get it fixed. Now, after the last 2 seasons, I'm not going to lie, folks. I didn't have a lot of faith. The faith was kind of gone. Towards the end of the year, I thought that it was probably in the best interest to make a move, to try and rejuvenate the program. Now, basketball is kind of more of my background. For those that really don't know, I have a lot more contacts in basketball from my days of scouting and doing AAU, and guys that were assistants that are now head coaches that I can still talk to and get inside scoop on. And I do know that South Carolina is not a priority job, that it's not one that was going to attract a whole bunch of attention, but that South Carolina was going to have to overpay. But I still felt that potentially it was in South Carolina's best interest to start over to make a move. With that being said, I give Lamont Paris a B+ for what he's done this offseason. I am impressed. I think, let's start with this. I think the hiring of Steve Smith and Bob Dunwald is massive. I don't think that y'all understand, what the upgrades are to that. And I get it, you don't quite make sense, but you went, no offense at all to Eddie Shannon and Will Bailey. No offense at all. But you simply hired guys with experience and that are simply better coaches. And as a matter of fact, Captain Dave, this is going to be clip number 4. Because one of the things about hiring Bob Dunwald is bringing a guy over who had international experience and could go out and get these international players. And here's just a sampling of this. This is, again, no offense to Eddie Shannon or Will Bailey. They couldn't do this. They couldn't go out and find you players like this. Here's yesterday Lamont Paris talking about bringing on Bob Dunwald.
The market's a little different, and with getting some guys directly from another country, with one of the additions to our staff, it's like you have an idea of what international connections are, and then we added Bob Donewald to our staff, and this is a guy who's been over there for a large portion of his career as a head coach in a variety of different countries, and then the connections that he has. You see what real international connections look like, international connections that move the needle, and I think probably above all else, I was really impressed with the real information that he was able to get in a very quick manner versus oftentimes with some of the internationals, you kind of get a stock answer and you're wondering, okay, is that really the root of what's happening, or is this what they really mean? And Bob in particular was really able to get to the bottom of some of those things that allowed us to move very, very quickly in a time where, seconds seemed like hours, seemed like days.
You get the point.
Yeah.
Tyler, I'm starting with that. These hirings, this staff looks more like an SEC staff and has been upgraded. Steve Smith has coached at Clemson. He was at Boston College. He's been around power high major basketball. He understands it. He's from this state. That's going to be another big aspect of it. You legitimately upgrade. Now, the next key is listening to those guys, right?
Sure.
Taking their advice during the season for game planning and things of that nature. But this is a huge step in the right direction to enhancing that staff.
Well, and again, we talk so much about the international talent and what is being done around college basketball, and that seemed to be a point of emphasis that Paris was going to make going into the offseason. So when you make a hire that helps streamline that process because Donwald has so many connections overseas, again, you saw the level of talent that they brought in, and we're excited about some of those guys they brought over here that, again, it sounds like a lot of them still haven't quite come over yet because they're playing with their respective teams. But regardless, he helped you out in those regards, and if those guys end up being the contributors you need to make this team better, then that is a big positive you take away from that hire being made.
I tell you what, Captain Davis is going to be clip number 8. So the next part is the guys you brought in. Well, let's start with these foreign players, Juan Fernandez and Hugo Lopez. Fernandez is supposed to be the big one of the group. He's expected to be a starter, whether it's the 4 or the 5. He's 23 years old. He's been around the block. He's played professionally in a Spanish league. I mean, this guy, look, if South Carolina is going to have any kind of chance, and again, I'm not trying to sell y'all on an NCAA tournament here. I'm really just trying to sell you on being competitive, quite frankly. That's it. And I don't know what that means in terms of win. But if South Carolina is going to be competitive, Juan Fernandez has got to be the guy. Here is Lamont Paris yesterday in his own words explaining what Juan Fernandez and Hugo Lopez bring to the table.
Certainly their physicality and experience. You know, Hugo is a very physical, hard-playing guy, and in our league, that has turned into the value in that has really turned to be at a premium. And so he won't be afraid to be physical. He'll do it with good size, effort, and energy, and physicality. And then Juan, with his length and size and he's been around the block, so he's seen really physical players. He's seen really athletic players. He's seen a lot. And so he's learned how to manipulate the game to where it suits him. And so those were things. He's just an experienced guy that he knows how to manipulate the game. That's probably one of the best compliments that I can give him. If it's being played this way, if it's being officiated that way, if he knows how to manipulate the game to where he can be a very effective player in the game. He doesn't get frazzled too often, and so those are things. But I do think that the fact that those guys are older, it'll help them get acclimated a little bit earlier. We'll also, again, because these will be 10 practices, full practices that we'll have, we'll look at running it a little bit more like an NBA, preseason combine type situation where maybe in the morning we're doing a lot of learning and some skill work, and then we come back later in the afternoon with some short, effective two-a-days to do a lot of playing at that time. And but we've done that before. Silvio De Sosa, who I mentioned, transferred to us at Chattanooga, didn't get there until August when the school year started. And as an experienced guy, he was able to catch on pretty quickly. And
so you hear that. A positive that he likes a physical nature that I do think has been missing from his basketball teams.
Well, that was my thing with him saying physical so many times. It's putting emphasis on the fact that that's something that you clearly lacked this past year. And when you look at Hugo, when you look at Juan Fernandez coming in, that's what we expect these guys to kind of be that missing piece from that you didn't have a season ago.
Here is also Lamont Paris talking about the strength of this team. It's a good question. I don't know. What is the strength? What are we looking for in this team to be the strength of the team? Here's a little more from Lamont Paris on the strength of his 2026-2027 team.
Constructing this group.
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I used the peanut butter and jelly sandwich analogy before, and I still think that holds true. I think we were the strength of our team last season was on the perimeter. And, I don't think it was any secret that there were some deficiencies in the front court at times, whether that was due to physicality, the ability to rebound, perimeter shooting, whatever that was. And then a year before that, our strength was, with Colin and Nick, was our front court. And so I think we've done a good job of in the diversification process of getting some front court and back court combinations that I think can be really good together. But so I think that's a big thing to learn from.
And again, I don't know. I don't. But me looking at it, I do like it. I like what they put together. I like Corey Mincy. I'm excited to see Davion Hannah and what he looks like if he's fully healthy. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see role player guys like Shane Blakeney and Camden Heidi, and to see what they look like. I'm excited to see Marcus Johnson, and we'll hear a little bit about him coming up in the next segment. I like the team that he's put together. I like the coaching staff he's put together. B+. B+ is what I give this team for what I give Lamont Paris for his offseason. When we come back, there's a problem, though. We'll continue to talk about the positives, but there is a problem.
Okay.
I'll explain that, and we'll let Tyler talk about that, too. Also, we'll update you on the schedule. We now know the home and away of teams, and that's part of the problem. It's a little bit of a problem. I'll explain. This is the halftime show. Bill Gunner for AAA Heating and Air. We are officially hitting those 100-degree summer days. But you know what? To the Gunner household, it stays nice and cool. Thank you, AAA Heating and Air. Thank you, Roy and Dana Finley, for having the great staff come out a couple years ago and put in a brand new Train Heating and Air system. They'll do the same for you. Let me tell you something. There's no better time than right now to be contacting AAA Heating and Air. With a 15-year parts and labor warranty, you can guarantee that heating and air unit is going to work properly. With guaranteed financing, you know that you're going to be taken care of and get what you need to keep the house nice and cool. And with no payments and interest for 12 months, I know the economy can be a little tough right now. You know for a fact that you're going to be able to afford what you're purchasing. So get in touch with AAA Heating and Air today. Visit the website. Call AAAtoday.com. Again, that's call AAAtoday.com. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. 2:34. So we slowly start to wrap things up here. Talking a little basketball, Tyler. And earlier today, we mentioned it. I'm in favor of this. I don't know what South Carolina basketball is going to be this year. I got no idea. What I do want to see is a little bit better non-conference schedule, something a little more entertaining. I look, don't make me watch a bunch of games against USC Upstate, and no offense, USC Upstate and Charleston Southern, and Albany and whoever else, and don't make me watch those, and then make me wait for conference play. Let's get some of this kind of out of the way and figure it out. And we know that there's a game against Clemson.
Yep.
The game will be here. We know that there will be a game against North Carolina State. That'll be part of the ACC SEC Challenge. That game will be in Raleigh. That's great. I'm excited about that. We now know that there will be a game against Maryland on December 19th. That's great. I'm excited about that. I was trying to look up. I don't remember the official title of the tournament that they're playing in out on the West Coast, and I don't remember the official team. Southern Cal is in it. I don't quite remember who else is actually in it. I don't think they have an actual bracket set up just yet for it. But I'll see if I can dig that. I don't think the bracket's been set up to tell us who we may or may not be playing. See if you can find that. But I like that we got in. I would love to see one more good home non-conference game. Mm-hmm. One more quality non-conference home game to fill out the slate. But also today, we learned the home and away schedule for the SEC games. So let's give that to you. South Carolina will have 3 teams in particular that they will play home and away, and that's going to be Florida, Mississippi State, and Georgia. They'll play those 3, Florida, Mississippi State, and Georgia. You'll play both home and away, so that's 6 games right there that the Gamecocks will play. The home schedule for South Carolina in conference, Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn. Auburn's not Auburn with Steve Pearl. They're not. Mississippi, okay. Texas, and Texas A&M, buckyball. Mm-hmm. Make away trips to Rupp Arena, Kentucky. Okay, not always scary. LSU, okay, that might actually be a foreign country the way that Will Wade is recruiting.
Well, the international players will feel at home for that one.
That's true. Missouri, got to make that long road trip. Oklahoma, another long road trip. Tennessee, tough, really tough place to play. And Vanderbilt, odd place. So there's your home non-conference. Now here's the negative. Okay, I said there was something bad. South Carolina, I think, greatly upgraded their coaching staff. I think South Carolina upgraded their roster. I think they're a pretty good basketball team. Pretty good. Good. I think they're a good basketball team. They're still 14th in the conference. They're better. The problem is the SEC as a whole. If you're not paying attention, the SEC as a whole is going to be a monster in basketball this year.
Well, and that's the issue that you run into because every offseason, every program and every team is trying to make themselves better from what they were the year before. And everybody that spent X amount of dollars the year before is trying to spend X amount more dollars the next year. Now, again, we don't know the exact number figure when it comes to what Carolina spent in the transfer portal, but we've heard it's somewhere kind of in the middle of the pack of the SEC, saying, okay, well, let's just say that's $12 million or something along those lines. Just kind of throwing a number out there. Okay, well, $12 million in the SEC last year, that could have gotten you into the tournament, maybe. Again, a lot of teams in the SEC made the tournament. The only handful, including South Carolina, didn't. Does $12 million do that for you this year in the SEC? I don't know, because these numbers continue to go up. The demand for talent continues to go up and up and up. And, again, you're just trying to get yourself back into the dance to some degree. So that's, I would say it's not a high bar to clear because it is, but that's kind of where you're setting your standard here. And we hope what they've done with the new additions to the staff, with the guys they brought in the portal, basically flipping this entire roster over, will be good enough to get to that point. But again, as I say about everything when it comes to this team, it's truly a wait-and-see mode because even winning those non-conference games that you talked about that you're excited to watch, that can tell you a little something. But when you get into the grind of the SEC, Tuesdays, Saturdays, Wednesdays, Saturdays, and all that kind of stuff, that's what really matters and that's what really counts. And again, the past 2 years haven't given you anything there.
No, and so I like everything that is taking place. But again, when you start to look at the SEC as a whole, how much did South Carolina really jump some teams? This is from Sports Illustrated, okay? And this is from June 2nd. So it's this month when we knew who was in and who was out of the draft and so forth and so on. Sports Illustrated's top 25. Number 1 in the country, Florida. Florida somehow got all those guys to come back. Welcome to the NIL world, where they somehow got about all their monsters to come back and do that. Texas is number 5. Behind them, you've actually got Tennessee at 12. So that's 3 teams in the top 12 right there. Vanderbilt's at 13. Arkansas's at 14. You keep going. Alabama's at 17. Kentucky is at 23. You get my point. The SEC is loaded again, and that is the problem. South Carolina's better. There's no question in my mind. And here's what it comes down to, folks. And this is not a knock, and I'm not trying to build up and or tear down anybody. This is a Lamont Paris coaching year. You have got to out-coach some people, out-strategize some people. You, Bob Donwald, Steve Smith, Tanner Bronson, like there have got to be game plans with the other team. What was it, year 2? I think it was year 2 that the 1-3-1 really came into play with Zach Davis, and they really confused some teams.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be situations where you really confuse. This is like, for everybody, it's like, well, when you give Lamont the players, I'm pretty sure he's a good coach. He better be a doggone guy. Like, this is a year where he has to coach this team to 2 or 3 extra victories because they're not better than 75% of the league.
Yeah, well, and, we talked so much about that team from now 3 years ago that didn't end up making the tournament, and that was a situation where I don't think we looked at any of that talent as like super high caliber. He was able to get the most out of them. They played really well as a unit together, and that's what led that team to be successful. Tons of guys with experience and stuff like that. I think you would look at what he's brought in the transfer portal and saying from a portal standpoint, you bring in a lot of higher quality guys. Don't know if that's going to translate to this team being successful, though.
One of the young guys that will be counted on to step in is Michie Johnson. By the way, Michie Johnson today signing with the Miami Heat for a summer contract. His cousin, Marcus Johnson, will come in. Marcus is a top 60 prospect. Marcus is one of the better prospects South Carolina basketball signed in the better part of the last 20 years. I mean, this is actually a really good pickup. Nobody's talking about it because, well, you've seen South Carolina basketball the last 2 years. But Marcus Johnson is a good pickup. Here is Lamont Paris yesterday talking about expectations from Marcus Johnson.
Part of what went into the process of getting Marcus to come here involved a lot of different things. One, his family, I've had a comfortability with them for years and years. So they understood in their minds what this opportunity would look like. Obviously, having Michie be able to tell Marcus what practice was like every single day, who I am as a human being, how he's going to be coached, what that looks like, the dissemination of information and how that's presented to a young player who's trying to figure some things out. I think all those really helped. But also part of it in our sell to Marcus was that we'll have a real role for you. And I think if you look around the landscape right now, there are way less. I mean, maybe in football it probably has been like that longer because it's the physicality difference between an 18-year-old in football and a 22-year-old has probably always been like that. But in basketball, you can overcome some of that just because you're such a good, talented basketball player. But what's happening right now as the average age of college basketball continues to get older, some of these high-level recruits aren't playing a big role. It's just not in the cards for them to play a good role unless they have a crazy level of overachievement. Our sell to Marcus was that we're bringing you in here for a role that's a real role, and that's why part of the reason why you should come here.
I'm fascinated to see Marcus Johnson. I'm fascinated to see it all. I just don't know what we're going to get. If you were to say, Bill, they're going to be 4-14 and be 12-18 again, I'd be like, okay, all right. I have no reason not to believe you. If you were to look at me and be like, Billy, they're going to win 20 games and be on the verge of an NCAA tournament team, I'd be like, I really don't know. And now, great, June 25th, a long way to go. Still football season to get through. Still got to get to football season, then get through. And they've got me excited. I'm ready to see it.
Yeah. Well, that's the last time we're going to hear from Paris for a while. So
Yes.
you can let that excitement kind of cool off, or not excitement, anticipation, maybe intrigue, I guess, cool off a little bit, and then we'll round back to it later in the fall.
803-404-6100. We will wrap it all up when we come back. It's the halftime show. All right, well, that'll cover our basket. As you just said, that'll cover our basketball for a while. I'd like to talk more about it, but I don't know what else we're going to get for a while on it. So
They have the Bahamas trip.
yeah.
I asked Jack, I don't know if they're going to do any media stuff. That is the one time I do remember seeing Lamont Pierce not in a quarter zip when they went on that trip a couple years ago.
Okay.
He's wearing like one of those Hawaiian shirts or whatever. So
Relaxed and laid back.
I guess so.
Well,
But
we'll see. We'll see what comes to fruition and how much more we get to hear from that. By the way, that Bahamas trip also will help them tremendously. It's just now it's you're able to do it for every school. It's not just South Carolina. So not only do you get to do something that I think tremendously helps, but unfortunately, everybody gets to do it. So there's a lot of things there where South Carolina, they spent more money. There was more resources. They got better players. They did this. They did that. But so did everybody else. They didn't do anything that nobody else did. That's the problem that you have right now. 803-404-6100. So during the break, as he does when he arrives at the studio, Jay Phillips came in to say hello, and we chit-chat. You and Jay are having a little anxiety party on the break, and they're struggling.
Well, I will say I don't think I go on the same emotional roller coasters with the Braves that Jay does.
Okay.
I think I take everything in stride a little bit more. But yes, it's not been a fun past couple weeks to be a Braves fan.
But you called this. You called it.
Yeah.
You've been on this from April. You told me, and I'm not worried about it. You told me in April when I was over here celebrating, and I was like, ride the roller coaster, baby. Have fun. And you were like, let's slow down. There's coming a moment where things are going to get dicey, and this is going to happen. Well, here it is. They're still up 4.5.
Yeah.
They're up 4.5. Injuries have mounted. We're into that time of year. It's kind of a survival to the All-Star break when you catch that second wind and you make the push for the playoffs. But they're in there. They're in there. Now, the 4.5 is a little concerning because you're up. You're up.
The Phillies are surging right now.
Yeah, Mattingly's figured things out there with them. But you called this, and it's playing out as Tyler had said. Now, some of y'all also are all like, look, it's going to end in heartbreak in September. You need to be prepared for that. That will be a little difficult. But, I think this is something, as you said, survive essentially the next, what is it? There's 5 days left this month. There's roughly 20 days. I'm going to round around 25. Survive around the next 26 days to the All-Star break. 25 days.
Yeah.
Get to the break, take a break, come back, be ready to go.
Yeah, that's the idea. Be in a good spot at the break. Again, various injuries in various places. I did read this stat earlier from somebody I used to work with, Kevin Keenely. He said the Braves currently rank as one of the 5 worst offenses over the past 5 weeks. Been watching the games, it feels that way. Left bases loaded last night in the second or third inning, whenever it was. So not capitalizing with runners on, those kind of things. Got guys going through slumps. We were talking about Austin Riley a moment ago with Jay Phillips. So it's not good right now. Again, it's a long season. They built up a lot of equity with what they did early on in the season, which is good. But this is the grind, right? This is why it takes the best of the best teams to get into the postseason, because you have to survive the grind of 162. So you're in the low. You're in a slump right now. You just lost another series to the Padres. You're staying out there on the West Coast, taking on a Giants team. More late games. Like, you got to imagine there's some fatigue factor going into that as well. So try and survive this West Coast road trip. Like I said, kind of get yourself to the All-Star break and then kind of reset and for the stretch rundown for the back half of the season.
Yeah, the Braves, unfortunately, are 3-7 in their last 10. They've lost 4 straight. And you kind of mentioned it. Now they are on a run. They faced the Giants. They faced the Brewers, and then you mentioned it. The Padres are really good, and they just got swept. 2 of those games, though, were 1-run games, 1-0 and 7-6. I don't know if you're like, well, maybe you're like me and you're being optimistic, and you're like, hey, they had opportunities. They did get beat 5-2 last night, and again, they have today off, so you get a day. You get a day. Maybe enjoy San Diego. I don't know. Maybe you enjoy San Francisco, wherever you want to go, and then back in action tomorrow night against the Giants for that 3-game set there. And this coming weekend, while you're there in San Francisco, you've got Lopez taking the mound tomorrow night, Bryce Elder on Saturday, and you got Chris Sale on Sunday. So you got a rotation there that does line up to maybe win a game or 2 before you come back home for a nice little stretch that sees St. Louis, New York, and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh actually is on the road, but St. Louis and New York for a 6-game stretch.
Yeah, again, you still got a 4.5 game lead as of right now, so you're not in the doghouse as of yet. So again, just get yourself back on track. You'll pick up if you can find a way to win the series this weekend against San Francisco. It'll calm the nerves a little bit. And again, it's a long season. You know these lulls are going to come at some point. It's just about trying to make the best out of them. So,
little Braves talk. We'll get more into that tomorrow on the Friday as we get you set for the weekend. We wrap things up. As of 3 o'clock, as of now, Gracie the Draft still cutting loose, acting a fool, still lost in San Antonio. If you're got nothing to do, head on out. USA Today actually has an answer. If you got questions, USA Today's ready to answer them. Guys, great show. Great show. Go, Gracie, go. We'll see you tomorrow.